I am Catherine Stanley. I work here at the Center for Transportation Studies for the Minnesota LTAP program. I'm going to be going over a few PowerPoint slides about who Minnesota LTAP is, and then lead us into the webinar with our host, our instructor, Brian Jackson. So welcome again to the Gravel Roads Maintenance webinar series. This is the first of 4 focusing on design and drainage. This webinar presentation is presented by the Minnesota Local Transportation Assistance Program at the Center for Transportation Studies at the University of Minnesota. Minnesota LTAP is sponsored by the Minnesota Local Road Research Board and the Federal Highway Administration. Minnesota LTAP was established in 1992 by Federal Highway Administration and in partnership with Minnesota's Local Road Research Board. Minnesota LTAP is one of 52 LTAP centers nationwide. Our programs are designed to provide technical transportation agencies with the tools for improving operations. LTAP's ultimate goal is to foster a safe, efficient, environmentally sound transportation system by improving skills and knowledge of local transportation providers through training, events, demonstrations, technical assistance, and technology transfer. We offer a variety of training opportunities throughout the year and around the state. So we have annual sponsored events. We have a variety of technical workshops. This particular webinar series is modeled after or inspired by our longest running and most popular workshop, Gravel Roads Maintenance and Design. And we also have several self-paced online courses. One focuses on gravel roads. We have others on culvert installation and sign maintenance. Minnesota LTAP has a variety of newsletters, reference documents, videos, a website, and provides library services and technical document searches. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a little bit about the participant view when it comes to Zoom webinar. I'm not sure how many of you have participated in a Zoom webinar before, but the chat feature, if you have anything you want the audience or the other attendees to know about, so for instance, you have a reference you want to share or maybe a tool that you use, that would be a most appropriate place to put in here so everyone will see it. And any specific questions that you have, please submit them in the Q&A. We will be answering the questions in the final half hour of the program. And if you need to leave the meeting at any time, you just hit leave meeting. And finally, I would like to introduce our instructor, Brian Jackson. He has over 30 years of heavy equipment operator experience. While in the Navy, he was licensed on 49 pieces of equipment. He spent over 20 years in Fillmore County, Nebraska. He's also a former grader instructor for Nebraska LTAP. And in 2019, he started his own training business, providing equipment training across the Midwest. So again, welcome everyone, and Brian, he will be taking over. And again, don't hesitate to put questions in the Q&A and then share any resources or tools that you may be using in the chat feature for all the other attendees to benefit from.
Thank you, Catherine. And I also wanted to say thank you to Minnesota LTAP and the Center for Transportation Studies for allowing me to be a part of the Gravel Roads webinar series. I'm looking forward to this opportunity and to the information that can be shared throughout the webinar series. My name is Brian Jackson. I am the owner of Jackson's Heavy Equipment Operator Training. I recently started my own heavy equipment training business, and I really look forward to, and I enjoy working with the operators that I get to spend time with. Today, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the importance of cutting edges and how they play an important part when it comes to the design and drainage of our roads. And then we're going to spend just a little bit of time talking about design and drainage. As we begin our gravel road maintenance webinar series, we will first start our discussion with cutting edges. As we proceed into other topics and discussion, it is important to understand cutting edges and how they play an essential part in the design, drainage, maintenance, and construction and the overall quality of our transportation systems. Cutting edges are the foundation of the motor grader. Think of it this way. When you build a house, do you start with the roof or do you start with the foundation? You start with the foundation. Blades are the foundation of the grader, and essential in establishing proper road building and maintenance practices. There are many types of cutting edges and blades on the market, and as a purchaser, it is essential to determine how the blades will be used, how the cutting edges are functioning, and will they be able to accomplish the desired result. A critical element of the cutting edge that needs to be taken into consideration is the cutting edge's ability to stay straight and not cup while performing varying tasks. Cupping is a term used in maintenance operations that refers to the center of the blade wearing faster than the outer edges, creating a parabolic shape to the cutting edge and road. Tasks may include maintenance, shoulder repair, material reclamation, grading, and even snow removal. Also consider the different climate conditions that cutting edges will be used in. A parabolic shape is often referred to as the appearance of a loaf of bread. Some blades cut quickly and can create many problems associated with road maintenance practices. Other considerations are how often or how much time are personnel spending to rotate or change blades? Are personnel even rotating the cutting edges to ensure they are working properly? Safety is also of prime concern. The more personnel have to crawl around or under the moldboard to change or rotate blades increase the chances of having an unforeseen incident. Blades are heavy. Consider lost productivity. The more time personnel spend rotating or changing blades, the less time they have to care for the conditions of the roads. The time operator spends changing blades can easily pay for a quality cutting edge. A cutting edge with more initial upfront cost can, over the long term, perform better, properly establish a higher quality road, and lead to overall cost savings. And on the counter side, using the wrong cutting edge, dependent on the situation, can quickly deteriorate a road, lead to poor maintenance practices, excessive cost, waste, and have a drastic effect on your budget and overall a less than adequate road. An example of that would be using a cutting edge during a dry period that would break the crust of the road, leading to quicker erosion of material and loss of fines. Loss of fines and dust brings on its own set of challenges. It is also possible to outfit your grader with multiple cutting edges, allowing it to be more effective and address different situations. Proper applications and use of cutting edges can add significant savings and improvements to your maintenance program. Further, the efficient working of the motor grader is dependent on its blades. I have done some independent studies on the cost effectiveness of various blades and how they affect motor grader operations. I would be interested to learn what type of cutting edges you're using and how they are performing. Looking at picture 2, you can identify how a blade will cup quickly, deteriorate a road, and lead to road maintenance issues. When we look at picture 2, we can easily see the gap in the center of the blade, and we can see how the outside edges of the blades are cutting lips and taking the center crown out of our road. And this slide provides good information and reiterates how the proper use and selection of a cutting edge is critical for proper road maintenance, construction, and design. When we look at the diagram of the roads in the upper left corner, the road's profile and cross section is achievable to have your roads resemble this appearance, but it will be dependent on the cutting edge, the machine settings, techniques, and the skills of your operators that are incorporated into your program. I really need to stress the importance of having straight cutting edges on your blades. I've done a lot of training and I've been a lot of places. And one of the biggest things that I notice when we go out there to do training or to do anything is the cut blades on a machine. And when you can really relay that to your operators and show them what that does to your road, it really provides a clear picture to them and the importance of straight cutting edges. This will lead us into our first poll question. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, which occupation will grow faster than all others at a rate of 10 to 12% over the next 10 years? And what is the suggested cross slope of an aggregate road? So I really want to say thank you to Catherine. She's done a great job while we've gone through this and setting everything up and setting up the poll questions and stuff. She's done a great job through this whole progress, and I really want to tell her thank you for all the effort and time that she's put into doing this. So.
Brian, do you want to go over the results?
4% think it's general and operations manager. What was that again, Catherine? You want me to read them, or did you want to?
Yeah, I thought you were going to go more into detail.
Oh, okay. Yeah. 4% think it's general and operations manager. 81% think it's heavy equipment operator, and 14% think it's construction laborers. Actually, especially with the new routes initiative that's coming out and some of the federal funding with Trump's infrastructure bill, they predict that heavy equipment operator will grow faster than all other occupations over the next 10 years. And then what is the general cross slope of an aggregate road? This is always a big discussion. And 15% think it's 2%, 76% think it's 4%, and 8% thinks it's 6%. 4% is actually a good target area to strive for on an aggregate road, and we will get into that a little bit more later in the discussion. Was you going to remove the poll from the slide, Catherine?
Oh, yep.
And then, oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
Now let's take a look at the design of our roads and how design and maintenance play an important part in drainage. In many ways, all the most important steps of road maintenance and construction are related to drainage, drainage, drainage. Drainage for adequate crown on the road surface, drainage eliminating standing water in the ditches, and adequate drainage on approach and centerline culverts. Roads that allow water to properly drain off the surface and out of the roadbed soils are much easier to maintain and therefore less costly. Eliminate as much of the surface and subsurface moisture as possible. Too much moisture is and has killed many a gravel road. It is the cause of frost heaves, soft road beds, and frost boils. Drainage is the most important factor to consider in road construction and maintenance. This slide shows different road designs. Although they mostly appear the same, they have some distinct differences, mostly along the shoulder designation and the hinge point. Design 1 has a defined road surface with a distinctive shoulder. The shoulder carries a greater cross slope than the road surface. The hinge point is also located before the shoulder. Design 2 shows a designated shoulder, but no change in the cross slope before the foreslope or hinge point. Design 3 shows a profile of a road surface with a cross slope from the center line to the hinge point, utilizing the whole road surface. Looking at the 3 designs in this slide, I would be interested in receiving feedback on what the audience's thoughts are on which designs are more suited for pavement versus aggregate and why. Something else I'd like you to consider in design is we need to focus on treating our roads like there are 2 halves to our roads. Maintaining our roads as 2 halves will assist in proper profiling. Maintaining unpaved roads with this concept challenges your operators to establish the proper profile through machine settings and technique. Now let's take a look at cross slope of the road surface and identify the 2 halves. Cross slope runs from the center line of the road to the hinge point. The hinge point can be located in different positions depending on which design you use. The hinge point is where the road meets the shoulder or foreslope. So what is the recommended or suggested cross slope, and how much should we carry on our unpaved roads? Do we want to carry 2%, 4%, or 6%? 2% is roughly 1/4 of an inch per foot fall, 4% is a 1/2 inch per foot, and 6% equals about 3/4 of an inch per foot. A 1.5 to 2.5% cross slope is generally what is carried on our paved roads, but is it enough to carry on an aggregate road? A 4% cross slope is a suggested target for an aggregate gravel road. An exact 4% can be difficult to carry at all times, due to the characteristics of an aggregate road. A good guidance to establish would be try to carry 3 to 6%. 3% would tend to be sufficient if you have a high quality aggregate surface, and if working with lighter, sandier, less stable materials, a suggested cross slope around 6% may be preferred. Remember, cross slope is measured from the center line of the road to the hinge point and should resemble a straight line. Often when we look at the cross slope, it may appear that it's around 3 to 6%, but in all actuality, that may only be the center part of the road. But once we hit the quarter crown, the cross slope may drastically change to around 8 to 12%, and in some instances, the center of the road may be inverted. This change in the road profile is often created by cupped blades or improper maintenance techniques and machine settings. This will take us into our next poll question. Paved and aggregate roads have some of the same design traits, but also have distinctive differences. Of the 3 designs on the previous slide, which one do you utilize in your road maintenance practices? And then question 2, when considering dust control and the use of chloride, what do you use to determine cost effectiveness? I would really be interested in hearing feedback on which road design you utilize. This information will be helpful in gauging how the audience looks at and targets road design. I've developed my own techniques and tips over the years, but would appreciate your feedback for further development. If you don't have time to answer now or before the end of the webinar and would like to have more time to think about it, feel free to reach out to me with your feedback. The first poll question will also take us into our next webinar series, Maintenance and Materials. I know at the end of the webinar here, my contact information will be up there, and you have Catherine's contact information too. I'm really interested in to see the different designs and to see how the audience looks at the different traits between an aggregate and a paved road, and how and it all plays an important factor on how we maintain and how we train our operators to maintain those roads.
Hey, Brian, could you go to the previous slide so people can review the design layouts?
Yep.
Thank you.
So right now it's really fluctuating quite a bit between design 2 and 3. So how's the weather been in Minnesota, Catherine? Getting a lot of rain?
Yes. It's very humid.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of rain here too. It looks like we might finally get a dry out a little bit. So. And just remember, a lot when it comes to the design, which one of these designs you use, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, everything refers back, we kind of got to reflect back to the straight blades. And I really got to stress the importance of that, of having the straight blades on your machine and really pushing your operators to make sure they keep those blades straight. So it's really important to make our roads look like this. Is everybody finished, Catherine?
So I just stopped and shared the results.
Okay. When it comes to which design you use, 13% use design 1, 37% design B, and 42% are using design 3, and then 8% are using another. A lot of times through the training and stuff, I recommend using the design 3, and there's a lot of reasons why I recommend that design, and it really plays a lot into how we train our operators to set our machines. When it comes to
Brian, can I had a quick question here from Greg Duncan. He wants to know, is there a practical difference between 2 and 3?
Yes, there actually is a practical difference between two and 3. Design 2, in all actuality, the way I look at that road, that's more for a paved. You're carrying a shoulder, and a lot of times that's a grass shoulder. And when you design your roads, especially with an aggregate road, a lot of times we deal with right-of-way issues. And when dealing with right-of-way issues, when we add that extra shoulder to the surface of our road top, it really takes away from our road top. And almost in a sense too, when you look at design 2, think of it as a pavement, okay? The darker lines, that's our pavement, and that's our shoulder area, and our shoulder area is always softer. So if we design our aggregate roads like that, and we're utilizing our traffic, and we're only like embedding our rock on 2 12-foot lanes, and we're leaving that extra 2-foot shoulder out there that's soft, what happens when the larger agriculture equipment and stuff is utilizing that road, and then traffic has to get over it, like when we have soft shoulders and stuff like that, that really adds to the soft shoulders. And if we're not putting the rock or embedding the rock all the way on the full surface of our road, it kind of, in a sense, creates a safety hazard. Think about it this way: when you go out and drive down the pavement after rain, drive off onto the shoulder that's soft, and see what happens. So that's one of the bigger differences between 2 and 3. Good question.
Thank you, Brian.
Did I answer your question, Greg? We'll go to 2. When considering dust control and use of chloride, what do you do? 26% say 100% township pay, 11% say 50% township, 50% assessment, 33% or 100% resident pay if not warranted, and 31% say other.
Oh, and
go ahead, Catherine.
we have a question too about clarifying what you said about the straight blade.
Okay. What was the question?
Clarify what you said by the straight blade.
I can cover that. The straight blade is the cutting edges on the bottom of the machine. You have to keep them straight. A lot of times what happens is if our roads aren't profiled how they look in any of these designs with the modified A shape to them, and they have more of the round parabolic shape to them, when operators go out with a new set of blades, a lot of times you'll hear them say, "Oh, my blade's chattering, my blade's chattering." Well, that's because the blade is straight and the road is round. So as they apply pressure to their cutting edge and they go out there to blade their road, it actually starts to cut and cup the center of the blade, leaving your outside edges longer. And when you do that, that creates a lot of maintenance issues with our roads, and really affects the design of our road. Did I answer your question, or did you need to know more about a straight blade?
Let's assume yes.
Okay.
You have one more. Oh, he says yes. There is one more related to the designs of the roads.
Okay.
If you are using design 3, how do you recover aggregate?
Actually, it's a lot easier to recover aggregate in design 3, and it really plays an essential part of your road, being able to get the aggregate back. That's a really good question, and if you don't mind, can I answer that one just a little bit later in my presentation? Because I do have a couple slides in there that talk about how to reclaim that material and bring it back up onto the road using design 3.
No, that sounds good.
Okay, now when we take a look at these two pictures, notice the distinct profile of the road and a modified shape in picture 1. And that is all dependent on straight blades. You can see a very defined center line and a very defined hinge point. A road that is shaped to this design will hold up very well and require minimal maintenance. Although this road received heavy truck traffic and local traffic, it held up very well even after it received around 7 inches of slow raining over a 10-day period. Looking at picture 2, you'll notice that the road has 4 tire tracks. Having 4 tire tracks is a good indicator of a road that has the proper profile. A road with only 3 tire tracks often dictates a parabolic profile to the road, and one with 2 tire tracks often dictates a road with excessive crown. When a road is properly profiled, traffic will tend to utilize the road top the same as the paved road, thus preserving the center line of the road, allowing for better drainage. When a road has a parabolic crown, only 3 tracks, traffic will place one set of tires down the center of the road, creating thus a flatter center, poor drainage. Along with the flat center and poor drainage comes potholes, rutting, a weakening of the surface and subsurface material, leading to a soft roadbed, frost boils, and overall a less than adequate road. So when you look at picture 2, when you drive the pavement, and you have your center line and you see the 2 tire tracks, kind of where traffic drives all the time on each side. When you properly profile a road, an aggregate road, you'll get that same effect on your aggregate roads too. The road design we use, along with the type of cutting edges and methods we use to train our operators, often dictates how our shoulder line looks. There are practices and methods that can often lead to the berm or lip condition in picture 1, thus restricting drainage. Picture 2 is the desired objective we want to strive for in establishing essential drainage. So if you go back to when we started the presentation, when we were talking about cutting edges, and that picture of the machine with the cupped blades, when we send our operators out with cupped blades to try to make a uniform profile, we're actually helping them cut that lip on the edge of our road. Excuse me. These pictures address the importance of proper profiling of the road and how crucial it is in drainage, road maintenance, and construction. We need to get the water out of the center of the road and to the ditches. A ditch doesn't provide much benefit to a road that is not properly profiled and retains the water on the road surface. A road can quickly deteriorate if it is not properly profiled. The common question is, how do we fix soft spots, shoulders, frost boils, washboards, potholes, etc.? It comes down to the basics: drainage, 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 and properly building, maintaining, and performing preventive maintenance to our roads. And this is accomplished through taking time to train our operators to develop skills and techniques to utilize in the road maintenance practices. This kind of takes us into our next poll question. 80% of equipment operators and 92% of highway maintenance workers have obtained this level of education. And the current deteriorating infrastructure costs the economy annually how much? You may be thinking, why do I need to know the education level of my operators or how much the deteriorating infrastructure costs annually? These are important facts to know, because this provides information on how to effectively employ tactics to train our operators, and makes us take a hard look at how we maintain and perform maintenance and preventive maintenance techniques. If the techniques if the techniques we are currently using are working. So if we're not getting the desired effect, where we have that nice profile to our roads with the nice shoulders, it's really important that we properly profile our roads. While you're doing the poll here, when we go back to this one, and to answer the question earlier, in design 3, how do we reclaim material from our ditches? When you take a look at these 2 pictures, these are different miles. And we went back in, we started a reclaiming process, and there's actually enough material reclaimed out of these ditches that we were actually able to gravel other miles with all the material we were pulling up. And when you take a look at the foreslope, the defined hinge point on these roads, it's really easy to do in design 3, but it all relates back to how we're training our operators and the techniques and skills that we're giving our operators. And it really is a simple method to use. And as you look at these 2 shoulders here, you can also tell there's still a lot of material down in those ditches and on that foreslope that can still be reclaimed and utilized on our road top. A lot of it all comes down into technique when you do it. But by also doing this too, you utilize, especially in rural America and the large agriculture equipment, you allow traffic to utilize your whole road surface. Looking at the poll question, 80% of equipment operators and 92% of highway maintenance workers have obtained a high school diploma or GED. There is actually very few qualifications that are required to be a heavy equipment operator. Most of it is, we do have some trade schools out there. Most of it's learned through on the job or maybe through apprenticeship training. And it's important that when we address our operators and we work to train them, that we have to understand that a lot of them may not have that, the education level. When we start throwing all this new stuff at them, all the computer designs, all the GPS, all the fancy things these machines use and utilize, it takes some time to train them and get them used to those functions. The current deteriorating infrastructure costs the economy annually. The answer is actually $200 billion a year. So when you look at how much it's costing the economy annually, we have to look at some of the maintenance practices we're doing. When I drive around and I look at roads, man, I see all those places, man, we could be cleaning out ditches or we can be utilizing material reclamation to save on our budgets. Using the proper blades. I have a formula that I could break down and show you how much using the proper blade and how much that could save you annually just on what type of blade you're using. In closing thoughts, when we look at this, it's important to remember it takes time, training, and skill to be proficient in road maintenance, construction, and motor grader operations. The motor grader is one of the most versatile machines in use today and requires a significant skill set to operate and perform the functions it was designed to do. The mindset, we've always done it that way, may not always be working, especially if we're not getting the desired results we want and if our roads aren't conforming to the design that we're using. But be willing to attempt new techniques that maybe we're not accustomed to. And remember not to forget the fundamentals and simplicity of road maintenance and construction. And a lot of that comes down to design. It comes down to the basics, making sure we got, good straight blades on our machines, and really taking the time to spend with our operators to teach them how to use that machine. Thank you. This is my information. I would really enjoy reading your feedback on receiving some feedback on some of the questions that we've talked about today, especially which design you're using and how we incorporate our training techniques into that and stuff. So,
I do have some more questions for you, Brian.
Okay.
Coming in fiercely here. So, one question is, what blades do you use or found are most cost effective? Also, what do you think of carbide blades?
That's really an interesting question. There's a lot of different blades on the market. Over the years, I actually started running carbide tip blades in early 2000. I really enjoyed them. They had a lot of benefits. The benefit of that blade being able to stay straight over time really adds to the road. There's blades that you can send your operators out on there, and we bring this up in every class. The guys will say, I'm out there 15 minutes, half an hour, I can cup these blades, maybe a different kind of blade. Well, are we really adding much benefit to our road then when they continue to run that cupped blade on their road for the next couple weeks before they decide to change it? There's a lot of manufacturers out there. They make a lot of different carbides. I like the standard carbide tip blade. I probably averaged maybe 1,800 hours to a set of blades. I've heard feedback from others and from other states that say their operators are getting 2,000, 2,400 hours out of a set of blades. Regardless of what set of blades you're using, you have to get your road profile right. Once you get that nice A shape to your roads require minimal maintenance. And, so depending on what type of blade you're using, you can burn up a set of carbides pretty easy. I've watched operators do that. They didn't like them. They didn't want to use them. So they went out there, and really went to cut and bearing down on their quarter crown. And, they can burn up a set pretty quick. A A lot of it comes, along with the set of blades you're using, what you're doing during certain periods of the year. How are you maintaining that road when it's wet? How are you maintaining it when it's dry? All those things really factor in. Do you have another question, Catherine, or would they like to meet a little more depth on that?
I do. Do you have any recommendations for grading, maintaining, and establishing a good surface on non-motorized rail trails, specifically in an arid environment?
I'm not really for sure that I understand that question. What do you mean, like by trails and stuff? Are you like looking at bike trails? What's the width of the trail? Could they be a little bit more specific on exactly what sort of trail and what they're looking for?
He said recreational trail.
A recreational trail, is that
Yep,
for
and
like
they're 12 feet.
12 feet?
12 feet.
12 feet. What are you using to maintain that recreational trail with? Are you using a motor grader? Are you using a tractor with a blade? There's a lot of different things out there. Are you looking at using a motor grade for maintaining those bike trails and stuff? If you are using a motor grader, remember, a lot of your older machines, the standard width of your motor grader, if you go on the outside dimensions, is about 8 foot. So there are certain ways that you could look to maintain your trails and stuff with the motor grader. They make a lot of different attachments and stuff out there too. If you're using a farm tractor, a smaller farm tractor with a blade on it might be more beneficial. You might not be able to get quite the control and stuff out of using a tractor blade as you can a motor grader. But you have to take all that into consideration. Maybe if you wanted to send me a picture of what you're trying to accomplish, that would give me a lot better idea of maybe to give you some suggestions.
And we also have a question here. If you could discuss the various cutting edge options.
I have my own opinions on some of the cutting edge options. You have your standard blades, which are just your regular steel blades. You've got your carbide tip blades. You've got the rock bits or the picks. When you use certain different blades, especially like the picks, you have to really be careful about using the picks. And a lot of, they have different names for them, picks, rock bits. The thing about using those is they break the crust of your road all the time. And when you break the crust of that road all the time, we all know that it takes moisture and compaction to reestablish that crust. So if you're going to use those picks, there's only certain times of the year that you should use them. And when you use them on a dry road, it'll actually bust the crust of your surface, which creates a greater loss of fines and more dustier conditions. So, it's possible to outfit your machine. One of the things I did was when I outfitted my machine that I operated was I had carbides on the moldboard, and then we made an attachment on the front of the machine that ran the picks. That way I could run the picks when I wanted to, if I had to maybe work on some washboards or some quarter crown or something. But I always had my smooth blades, my carbides behind me, my straight blades to straighten the road up and leave it in good condition. But the big thing is, if you're using the picks, especially when it's dry out, you're going to have to use a water truck, or you're going to have to roll it. If not, you have to let Mother Nature provide the moisture. And we all know that when Mother Nature provides the moisture, that road's going to get a little greasy or slick until you can get that compaction and get that crust reestablished to your road. So a lot of it all depends on what maintenance practices you're using, what time of the year you do certain maintenance practices and stuff like that.
Another question is, our township does not own a grader. We contract with a local company. Is there a respectful way to talk to the company about the training they give their operators, how they care for their blades?
That's the very respectful way, just go down and sit in and talk to them. If they're not accomplishing the goals that you want to accomplish and your roads aren't performing the way that you expect them to perform, and you notice that their operators are out there maybe using a less than adequate blade or something, you have all the right to go in and sit down and visit with them and say, hey, you know, this is the design we're using. This is how we want our roads to look. You know, take a picture, you know, take a picture of the blades, you know, this is what's happening to our roads. They're cupping. We're not getting the drainage. We're getting the lips. There's a lot that plays into everything. I mean, along with having the straight blades is very important, but it's also the training that these operators are receiving to make sure that they're applying the proper techniques when they're out there. I've seen a lot of bad techniques over the years, and I've seen a lot of bad techniques passed on down. And maybe they don't realize that maybe the techniques they're not using, maybe there's some better, more advanced techniques out there they could be using to properly accomplish what they want to do to their roads.
Thank you, Brian. Another question is, when reclaiming shoulders and pulling in secondary ditches, what's your best recommendation for dealing with vegetation? Using the blade versus a reclaimer or a mulching head?
That's a really good question. I'll touch on it just briefly right now. That is actually something when we go into our next webinar series and when we talk about maintenance and materials, I was going to do a little bit more in-depth discussion on reclaimers, disc, using the blade. There's a lot of options out there when you do that. We didn't have the disc and stuff, so I did a lot of work with the blade. There's a lot of different ways to utilize your blade, to reclaim the material, to utilize your windrows, where to place that material. A disc works really good for busting up the material, but you always, one thing about, you have to be careful about using a disc. They do a great job of busting up the material, and they can help you save time when doing it, but you still need to come by and cut with your blade. The disc isn't going to give you that true straight line, that true hinge point to your road as you can with a blade. The mulchers, that is something I've been researching, and I'm trying to find out. There's a lot of different stuff on the market. So I've been reaching out to some of the manufacturers, trying to gather more information about the different kinds of mulchers, how they're utilizing them. We have one county here in the state that's using a certain kind of mulcher. I would like to get up and visit with him a little bit and do a little bit more extensive research on them, on how they're working. He really likes it. We have different counties across the states that are using the disc. There's a lot of different discs on the market too. So there's a lot of different practices out there. It all kind of comes down to research, what fits with your budget and what's going to work with your operators and how you train them.
Okay. Another question is, should ditches be cut first and then the roadway graded?
Are you talking more into a road rebuild, or are you talking about reclaiming, or how are you wanting to do it? Every project is different. No two projects are, you know, exactly the same. You know, if you're going in to do a total rebuild on a road, where you start cutting at varies. Okay, if you go in to rebuild a road and you haven't done anything with the vegetation on the road, you know, you're going to have to get that vegetation cut off first and get it busted up and get it worked in. So you might actually start towards the road and then work your way back towards the back slope. If you're doing a total rebuild, you know, maybe you'll start at the back slope, you know, cut your ditches, bring that material up. If you're worried about erosion, you might have to cut the vegetation off, roll it up on your back slope, roll it back out there, build your road up with all good material, roll your vegetation back into your ditches and your foreslope, bust it up, maybe use a disc on it, bust it up, and that's a simple way to help you with erosion and reseed your ditches. If you're reclaiming material, you naturally start on the edge of your road. Reclaiming material is a tough thing to do. It's a lot of settings, and there's different ways of doing things between rebuilding and doing things as preventative maintenance. You know, you can start reclaiming material as preventive maintenance to your road to reestablish that foreslope, bring the material up and save it. It takes a little bit of time to do it. You always kind of limit your operators on what they can do when you start doing stuff, especially if the public isn't accustomed to seeing you do things like that. There's just a lot of different practices out there. It's a lot to cover. So.
Another question is, if the road has no aggregate, do you blade any differently?
You're talking about more of a dirt road. You still want to profile it the same. If you don't have any aggregate on that road, you still want to build the road the same. There's some great dirt roads out there that stay in great shape. They're built nice. You still want to make sure you have adequate drainage, and you still profile your road the same. You probably want to run a little bit larger. That's where we have the lighter, maybe less stable material. So you're going to run a little bit greater of a cross slope, maybe around 6%. But I would try not to exceed 6% on them.
Great, thank you. And another question is about, can you touch on taking a roadway from asphalt to gravel?
I don't have a lot of experience with taking an asphalt road to gravel. I know they have some different things out there where you can bring them in and grind them and stuff like that. I think that's something as an entity you have to look at. You need more facts on it. You need to look at how much is that road costing us in repair, how much time are we spending on it to repair the asphalt, what are the cost benefits of turning it into an aggregate road. You just got to kind of research it and have a little bit more detail as to which direction you're going to go.
Great, thank you. I do have another question. What about putting an edge on a field entrances so the rain doesn't run down the drive?
If it's a field entrance, your road should always maintain its profile through a field entrance. A good thing to do is, I know a lot of people tell me, well, that's county right away. I can do whatever I want. Things have really changed over the years. It's a good idea to put an edge, maybe slope that entryway to that field a little bit. I did a lot of that over the years. As I reshaped my roads and stuff, you'll notice that, especially when it comes to residentials, they build their driveways a lot higher, and all that water runs out onto your road, creating a real hazard. But a lot of times I found, take time to shape that entryway back, but always go and talk to the landowner first. I always took time to make sure I talked to the landowner. I'd point out to him, I'd say, hey, this is what it looks. If you let me shape this entryway up, it'll provide a lot more benefit for you. It'd be a lot easier for you to get into your field. Plus it provides a lot more benefit to the road. The big thing I can say is they need to be shaped up, but make sure you take time to talk to a landowner, explain to them what you're going to do, so that way you don't find yourself into a lawsuit or something.
Great, thank you. Another question is, what do you consider a reasonable amount of miles for a maintainer to maintain a section?
That is totally dependent upon the skills of your operators. Some operators can, I ran roughly around 80 miles. That's one lane, that'd be 160 if you figured lane miles, but that's one way of road. Snow removal, I did 100 miles of one way, 200 if you did lane miles. It really is dependent upon the skill of your operators. A reasonable amount, mostly when I travel or I go anywhere around, it seems like most of the operators are probably running 80 to 100 miles. But the thing of it is, you have to look at your program. You have to look at what all your operators are required to do. If you're only working 40 hours a week and you're asking your operators to get over 80 to 100 miles, and if you're setting time frames on them, they still have a lot of other work to do. They got to do the maintenance to that machine. You got startup and shutdown procedures. Plus you have them doing a lot of other things. So it all depends on your road program and what all the functions are that you're requiring these operators to do. A little bit more details, a little bit more facts, would really help out in answering that. But, and then it depends on the training and the experience level of them.
Thank you. Another question is, all our roads are different widths. How do you get proper drainage when the blade is wider than the roads?
Then the blade is wider than the roads.
Yep.
So you're working, I would imagine are you running a 14-foot moldboard, 16-foot moldboard, 12-foot moldboard? If your roads are that narrow, how do you get proper drainage? There's different techniques you can use. If you're running a 14-foot moldboard, you got to figure your angle into your 14-foot moldboard. So is your road less than 14 foot wide? If it is, there's different techniques you can look at doing. Your operators can go out with maybe a simple 2-pass to maintain them. But even if it's 14 foot wide, you should still be, your machine is 8 foot wide, unless you bought a newer machine and got wider tires and stuff. But you should be able to go out and maintain your road with a 2-pass and still get the drainage. And if your road top is that narrow, we also got to take a look at our right-of-way. I mean, what are we working with for right-of-way? Do we have any establishment of a ditch there? We have to have some sort of drainage there. And if you don't have enough right-of-way to even have a ditch, you got to make sure that the road's profiled right with that A shape to it. A lot of it comes down to machine settings. Training your operators on how to set those machines. It's tough to do over a video or a webinar. It's possible.
Great, thank you, Brian. Our time's coming close to an end here, so we're going to end with a couple questions that were repeated multiple times. One was about methods you recommend for retrieving lost material over the edge, and about eliminating the lip.
Eliminating the lip. Those are really good questions, and those are actually things that we're going to I'm going to cover a little bit. Yeah, see what I did here. When it comes to reclaiming material and getting rid of that lip, when you take these two pictures here, these roads were 50 foot wide, and when you go in there to do it, when you start reclaiming material, you got to decide how aggressive you're going to be with it. Do I want my operators to be aggressive? Do we want to rebuild the road, or do we want to do as preventive maintenance practice? When you go back in there, when I actually started on this road here, like I said, I pulled up enough material, I took it off and graveled other roads with it, but I continued with it. It's all technique and tip, and what you're trying to do. To get that defined edge to it, you have to set your machine a certain way. You got to limit the amount of material you're bringing up onto the road, especially if you're doing it as a maintenance practice. When you look at the windrow in that top picture, there's a lot of good material in there. If you have too much fines in there, there's techniques that you can use to roll those fines out to get more aggregate in there. Did I answer it okay for you? There's a lot of different techniques and methods you can do. It depends on your budget. I mean, can you afford to buy a pulverizer? Can you afford to buy a disc? If you don't have that, there's other ways you can bust that material up when you bring it up. That motor grader is a great machine. There's a lot of things you can do with just that machine to bust that material up and to roll that stuff out and to get it in shape. There's ways that you can utilize that material to control the vegetation on the other side. So when you cut the other side, you're not fighting as vegetation as much. The big thing is, when you do some of that stuff, it's good to maybe start in the spring when you start doing that stuff, when the grass is still brown, when it's still dead. If you're worried about erosion, stuff like that, when you start cutting that, you're not going to cut all the roots out. That grass will grow back. You have one more question, Catherine? Are you still there?
Yep, sorry, I was on mute when I was talking. Final question, do you have any experience using rear-mounted roller packer? If so, what are your thoughts?
Great question, and you guys are getting into a lot of topics I was going to try to cover next, and I just actually talked to Catherine about this before we did this webinar. These were things I was going to talk about in our next webinar series. I do have experience with them. I did pull one behind my machine. I had a bumper, one that hooked to the bumper, and I pulled it. I didn't have the actual mount that you could raise and lower. I have a lot of different thoughts on the different types of rollers and stuff that they can use. The type of roller that you choose to use is kind of dependent on what you're trying to accomplish when you're out there. Sheep's foot roller, it's a great roller for busting up sod. It packs your road really good. The pneumatic, the rubber tired ones, they're kind of made for, it's kind of an all-purpose roller, but it's not really going to bust your material. If you're getting into material reclaiming, regrading, pull material up on your road, it's really not going to bust the material up for you as a sheep's foot would. But if you have really good aggregate out there and you're laying new material down and you have the right proper moisture content, it can do a good job of packing that material down for you. So, and like I said, that is some things that I did want to kind of just get into a little bit more in depth in the next webinar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brian. And I hope everyone enjoyed the webinar. Yes, thank you. Tomorrow you'll be receiving just a thank you email, and also that contains the evaluation. So if you have an opportunity, please complete that form, and that will help us with the remaining sessions as well. So I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for everybody today. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for all your feedback. And like I said, if you want to have a more in-depth conversation, if you want to give me some more feedback on your designs or anything, feel free to reach out to myself or Catherine. She's really good. She's been great to communicate with and stuff. So, and just want to say thank you for everybody for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.